Hello my friends and welcome. It seems like there is the threat not just for Iranian regime but also for the Russian one. The situation with the Russian oil goes very terrible, especially for Putin and Putin's circle. Now the price for the Russian oil is something around $37–38 per barrel of Urals Brent, which is lower of course compared to the other oil producers, and the trend for the oil prices still goes down. And if Donald Trump achieves what he wants to achieve in Venezuela, if a revolution in Iran is successful, it's gonna be a catastrophe, really tremendous harm for the Russian budget. So Russia will not be able to finance its military. Well, even without this oil prices drop, it's gonna be very hard for Russia to continue the war in Ukraine for extensive period of time. But if everything works well for allies, or it's better to say partners, I think this term nowadays is more relevant. So if everything goes as it goes, in the next couple of years, nothing will remain from the Russian economy. It will definitely go to the worst possible scenario. Just imagine if the United States will be capable to open the oil cooperation with Venezuela. Yeah, there was the meeting between those managers of the energy companies. Some of them, they are quite skeptical about investments in Venezuela, and it is understandable because the property of those companies, it was nationalized by Maduro's regime, Hugo Chavez's regime, it's better to say, and the same regime is still in power. Yeah, Donald Trump kidnapped Maduro. He's now in isolation in New York, in some of the local prison, waiting for his trial. But the main thing that Maduro's regime, Hugo Chavez's regime originally, is still in Venezuela. So those companies, they are not looking to rebuild it right away. And one of the CEOs, I think, of the Chevron company, sorry, I might be mistaken here, well, he stated that lots of the investments are required and lots of the time, up to a decade, to rebuild everything that was lost before. But Donald Trump and his allies, political spectrum of the United States, which now forms the power of the White House, they're more or less optimistic. And there is a single company, I think it's ExxonMobil, they're willing to invest. If everything goes well in the next months, they may rebuild the infrastructure. And that is tremendous harm that they do for Russia, because Russia is basically excluded from this Caribbean Sea, from the Western Hemisphere at least, and Russia was in a close cooperation with Venezuelan dictator Maduro in how to operate this shadow fleet. It's not just the Russian shadow fleet, it's the common dictator shadow fleet. First of all, Venezuela shared its experience of how to operate those tankers, because that country is under the sanctions for a very, very long time, as well as Iran. And they built some sort of the syndicate all together. The same tankers were transporting Venezuelan oil, then Russian oil, Iranian oil, everything of that was interconnected and working together to fuel those dictator autocracy regimes, and first of all their repression mechanisms and their armies. No, not economy. As we understand from Iranian experience, their economy is in a deep shit, and people, they don't like it, they go on the streets, they protest, and Iranian people, they're very brave. As today I checked the information, thousands of people were unalived and still they're protesting. The bloody Iranian regime, they try to unalive their own people, calling those terrorists, foreign agents and so on, but people go on the streets. That's example actually to the world and to the Russians first of all, of how people definitely willing to get the freedom. Even in Ukraine in 2014, then there was the revolution of dignity. Those protests were not such bloody. Yes, more than 100 people died, but not thousands, not even close. In Iran, it's total unhinged. Ayatollah should leave. And it definitely looks like that the end of Ayatollah is very close, because those protests, they're very, very big. They're massive. German Chancellor Merz today stated that there could be the end of the Ayatollah regime in the coming days. Well, I hope he is correct. Maybe he has some of the information from the German intelligence, who knows. But for now, I'm also quite optimistic about the outcome. I'm very sad about the events, like people were unalived, yeah? It's horrific, it's terrible. The goal of protests is good, to dismantle this regime. But this video is not about Iran. However, you see, everything is connected. Iran, Venezuela, Russia. And just imagine if Iran people are successful. Lifted sanctions from Iran. Lots of the companies are going there. A free trade for Iranian oil elsewhere. Open markets. And that will lower the oil price even more. Just imagine what it could be for Russia in this case. So not just Russia loses its ally in Iran nowadays. I think they will lose it after all, as it happened with Bashar Assad. But also they lose the cooperation in the drone production industry, and also Russian military was sold to Iran. There was exchange, but sometimes Russia sold their technology. And the actual units of the military equipment, like for example Sukhoi 35 airplanes, and recently sent to Iran Mi-28 attack helicopters, they're very sophisticated. Iran, of course, is unable to produce that kind of the equipment, but Russia is capable because still they have some of the factories left from the Soviet Union. They modernize some of the fighter jets and they release Sukhoi Su-35. Well, it's the family of Sukhoi 27 made in Soviet Union. It was upgraded, updated, and Russia sells those fighter jets to their partners, including Iran, but it's gonna be over. For cooperation between Iran and Russia, Iran will become the competitor. Well, Iran and Russia, they're already competitors, but not as strong as they could be, potentially. Just imagine, those countries are under the sanctions. If Iranian revolution is successful, all the sanctions are lifted off and Iran is capable to trade free its oil elsewhere, but sanctions are kept on Russia. Now they are forced to cooperate because they're in the same boat, let's say, under the sanctions, strict sanctions. So they have to come out with solutions about the shadow fleet, how to trade their oil behind the curtains, outside of the legislation, let's say. But without Ayatollah, of course, Iran will step on the feet of Russia, and it's good for Iranians because they may earn money from trading their oil without any sort of the limits, or just trade limits. You know, it's the open market. Who has the lower price has more clients, especially if there are no any problems with the legislation to sell oil. Yeah, now there are huge problems, for example, for India to purchase shadow fleet Russian oil. That's why initially there was the information that the biggest Indian energy company, it wants to, after all, resume purchasing of the Russian oil, but at the final moment they canceled it. And maybe they wrote the Twitter from Donald Trump. He wrote for India in particular, you have to stop purchasing Russian oil. Once again he wrote about it, otherwise you'll get under the secondary sanctions. So you understand, yeah, I don't like Donald Trump. I hate this guy. I hate what he does inside the United States of America. I hate how he threatens Greenland. It's the kingdom of Denmark, member of NATO, so allies. For Donald Trump there is no difference, yeah, between dictators and allies, friends. He just wants to grab something, resources, I don't know, influence. It's his own personal goal. If he sees something weak, someone big, he will push like this bully. That's why I don't like Donny, because he doesn't understand what is happening really. What is good, what is bad, those terms are not for Donald Trump. They do not exist for American leader that was democratically elected. But if we put those things with Greenland and internal American policy aside and judge what Trump does on Russia, on Russian oil, how he actually captured lots of the Russian tankers at the beginning of this year, all of his actions are very, very harmful for Russia. They're devastating for Russia, for the Russian economy. I'm sure that Putin looks at this and he doesn't believe what is happening. We thought we control him. It's Dmitriev, Vitkov, cooperation, negotiation. Come on, Trump, let's make the deal, blah, blah, blah. No, Trump is even crazier than Putin, as we see. And yeah, Donald Trump may like Putin. He said about it himself. Donald Trump in general, he likes those strong dictator leaders like Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, Putin. But if Putin humiliates him for such a long period of time, Trump is an idiot, but if he hears from every sort of the media that Putin humiliates you, are you pro-Russian, are you Krasnov, who are you? So Trump would not like it and he counteracts. Personally, I don't think that Trump is the agent of Russia. Maybe Russia has something on Trump. Maybe Russia has influence via Vitkov and Kushner and someone else, but personally I don't think that Trump is working for Russia, because his actions, even then Russia put its flag on the Shadow Fleet tanker, well, Americans, they didn't care. They just grabbed the tanker, annexed it. Yeah, Russia says that it was empty, but today the news were published that Americans found 1.5 tons of gold. Also some of the drone spare parts on the tanker. Just imagine how Russia uses shadow fleet tankers. This trade is completely illegal, and if it is illegal, Americans do not hesitate to use illegal actions. Actually, this is pirating, yeah. They pirated the Russian vessel, tanker, not just one but three at least, and took it, yeah. If it is outlaw, we're gonna use outlaw actions, because it could be our tanker. If you have the crew, okay, take your crew, and there were also Ukrainians, by the way, on board of those ships. Why is it like that? Well, I understand this profession. It's very similar to pilot. If you go to Emirates, you may find Russians there, Ukrainians, Americans, everyone. Usually the crew is multinational, but for the vessels, mostly Filipinos are there, and Indians, lots of those people, because simply those commerce bosses, they pay less salary for people from, let's call them, third countries, just because the salaries in those countries are lower and people are willing to spend lots of the time on vessels for very low salary. It's simple capitalismus, should I call it like that. So now there are less Ukrainians and Russians and more of those people. I know it because I speak with my friend. His name is Timur Rudov. He also has his YouTube channel. He says about this stuff openly. He's the captain of the vessel. And one more thing, Ukraine is using its drone boats to harm Russian shadow fleet also in the Black Sea. Very effective. Today I read the news that at least 2 of the oil tankers, they were empty, but they were hit by the drone boats. So imagine who continue to operate actually those Russian shadow fleet tankers, why they still go to the Black Sea. It definitely tells that those companies are really shadow, insurance companies and companies created to operate those tankers, and how sailors are going there to operate from Novorossiysk. I don't know, it's very risky, guys. I wouldn't suggest anyone to go on any sort of the vessel to the Russian ports nowadays. Especially oil tankers, it's very risky. And the day before yesterday, Ukraine performed the attack even in Caspian Sea using FP2 drones. There are at least 3 of the Russian platforms of Lukoil company. They're very profitable, but Ukraine is capable to reach even that far away from its own territory. And I'm sure that our allies, they help Ukraine, partners, let's say, maybe also the United States of America with its intelligence. And here again, it's the plus of kind of incompetent administration of the White House. Yes, they do not support Ukraine directly with military help. It's the very big minus of it. They also have this kind of the peace deal strategy with Putin, those negotiations. It was awful the entire year, but at least they're okay with Ukrainian strikes. I guess they may even provide the intelligence information, as I already mentioned you. Ukraine has never ever attacked Russian energy sector that massively. Oil refineries, tankers, oil storages, everything of that is burning each night, and everything of that harms Russia a lot, little by little, but really creates even fuel crisis in Russia. We don't see it on TV any longer, but still there are many regions of Russia where the fuel supply is pretty much critical. On occupied territories as well, Ukraine creates this crisis in the Russian economy. Sanctions applied by our partners and the kinetic sanctions as well. Can we also put the capturing of the Russian oil tankers into kinetic sanctions sphere, because that action is the real one, yes, not on a paper. And actually those restrictions on the Russian companies, they work here and there. You know, it's like applying the trade regulations for illegal gambling business, something like that. The same outcome could be. So if Russia trades illegally, there should be the real action. And the United States, I was shocked actually that they captured the real vessel that was carrying Russian flag, that was renamed to some other ship. Bella 1, now it's Marinera, yeah, but Americans, they didn't care. They captured, and it was fantastic operation and very good step. I'm sure that Putin is really concerned about what happened with Maduro, about what is happening in Iran, what is happening in the Russian oil sector, Russian tankers. All of those thoughts are overwhelming for him, and he's not commenting. He disappeared from the Russian informational field, and sometimes he just comments some random, absolutely not related stuff. Well, some members of the Russian elite, they're saying about, oh, Americans did a very big mistake, but what Russia can do about it? Nothing. Absolutely. Russian economy is in a deep shit. The Russian influence is undermined by the bigger force. United States of America is the bigger fish than Russia, so it is capable to act as it wants, especially with Donald Trump. He doesn't care. If there is Putin, if there is no Putin, if he wants the oil, he might take it, and as a bonus he obtained some of the drone parts and 1.5 tons of gold. That of course was found on the ship, and I hope that our other allies, like for example United Kingdom, they will also start to act in the same way. And today I read the article from The Telegraph, I guess, that United Kingdom is preparing for this possible action in its waters, in its free economy zone, against Russian shadow fleet tankers, because they really might carry some of the military-grade equipment, some illegal trades might be happening. UK, go for it, you can do it, and other allies as well. For example, imagine if those capturing operations start in the Baltic Sea. It's crazy, it would be complete finish for Russia. So even though Putin and the Russian elite, they continue to scream about reaching the goals of the special military operation, but the fact that they are unable to do it with a wrecked economy, especially oil sector, it is very important for Russia. You know, I saw the video of Kellen Robertson, he's the friend of the channel, and he recorded the video about the Russian shadow fleet, how they refuel one tanker from another one, from the shadow tanker to not shadow, and trading this oil with China, India, Turkey and some of the Western countries, European countries. So the important thing is to stop it. This refueling is happening not far away from Greece, in Mediterranean. Even by the time I'm recording this video, this scheme is still operational one. But we see that little by little the pressure on Russia increases, and I hope that the main refineries that are still processing Russian oil in those countries as India, Turkey and China, they will also go under sanctions. We don't need to apply like 500% sanctions on all of the China-made goods, because it may harm also our economy in the European Union, yes, also in the United States, Canada, elsewhere. Just apply sanctions on those particular companies that trade Russian oil, and it will bring the end for the Russian economy. In a couple of years it will be shattered, flat-lined. Well, I hope that there will be support from Senate to vote for the secondary sanctions on those companies who trade with Russia, Russian oil. They're speaking about 500% of the tariffs, not sanctions yet, the tariffs. I just hope that it will be voted as fast as possible. That project is almost 1 year out there in Senate. It has majority of the support from Democrats, from Republicans, but Donald Trump is not using it fully. But I guess he will use it. It's like one of his weapons against Putin. To force him to agree for some sort of the peace deal. He already forced Ukraine to agree with most of his points, with his peace plan. The only thing he understands that Ukraine will not trade its territory. It's already vivid. Zelensky told to Donald Trump that I'm not willing to just give up and capitulate in front of Russia, giving this territory and without any security guarantees, by the way. So Donny understood that he reached the maximum point of pressure on Ukraine, and he started to change the direction, pressuring Russia. And I like it, honestly, the beginning of this year, personally for Putin and personally for Russia. Also yesterday it was 1418th day of the war, of the full-scale war that Russia started against Ukraine in February 2022. Yeah, it goes since 24th of February. And this duration equals to the Great Patriotic War that was between Germany and the Soviet Union. So Soviets, they had their own war inside the Second World War from the moment then Hitler attacked Soviet Union. It lasted also 1418 days, but for that entire time Soviet Union went from the collapse of the front lines and occupation of the vast part of the European territories and Caucasus to the great victory in Berlin. It took them this exact time. But for Putin, this 3-day special military operation still continues, and Putin wasn't able to occupy even the big city, a single big city in Ukraine. Yes, Kherson he occupied, this is the oblast center, the big city, but they were forced to leave it. And now Kupiansk probably, oh no, Kupiansk was retaken by Ukraine. It was the counteroffensive operation, it was humiliation of Putin once again. So many humiliations for Putin are happening. What can I say? I like it a lot, and just imagine this Russian propaganda. We can repeat our victory, we can do it, we can do it. All of the Russian regime was built on this great patriotic war victory propaganda. but de facto they're unable to achieve it. Yeah, you might say that they do not use the same resources like millions of people. The war economy is not fully functioning as it was for the Soviet Union. But what's the problem, Russians? It means that you are not motivated for this new war or what? And still the losses are tremendous. At least 1 million of Russians, they're either cancelled, flatlined or disabled. And what is very interesting that Russian society is quite okay with that. With all of those losses, they're not protesting like Iranians. This is shocking as for me, because even in the Soviet Union time during Afghan war, there were unrests, let's say. Those were not like in Iran or something, but people were speaking about the losses and unjustified war openly. Here, if they speak about the war, even if they call the war and not the special military operation, they could be jailed. Lots of the years in prison, and later on Russia may send them to war as the cannon fodder as they do. Crazy. Only Putin and Peskov, Russian elite, may call it a war. So the own Russian propaganda has been destroyed, wrecked, crushed into reality, into this wall that Russia is unable to achieve anything. How can you even compare what is happening now to the great victory of the Soviets? Even the Russian Z community, they're shocked, like, what is happening? What are we doing? We are not winning this war. Maybe it's all about Putin. They're incompetent. Putin is the wrong leader. He's becoming the failed prophet. And that is what we heard before from Prigozhin. He was the same, yeah? And there are many of the voices already like Prigozhin with less influence, without the real armies, personal armies. But imagine what it could be soon in Russia. Even patriots are against it. Yeah, Putin, what are you doing? You're not winning, you're not competent. Gerasimov, everyone hates Gerasimov, even the Russian soldiers. Well, I don't like Syrsky either, as well as many officers and soldiers of the Ukrainian army, but Syrsky is not mid-grading Ukrainians like Russians do. They just send those convoys, useless attacks, and I see every day those videos. I show them to you on my Telegram channel. We review them on YouTube partially, yeah, as much as I can personally show you that Russian army, it definitely stuck, it bogged down, and they have losses after losses after losses. They are unable to go forward. They mainly use their tank reserves, BMP reserves that were accumulated for decades. The Soviet heritage is getting exhausted, used, and they're just in panic, I guess, right now. Well, still we understand that Russia is a big country, they have this inertia, and for the next couple of years they will be capable to fight on the front lines, but it's inevitable for it to collapse. On the front lines in economy, everything will be collapsed. Absolutely, guys, and we're gonna see it. I know that I tell about it in those kind of the videos we speak, but I'm actually encouraged. I see what is happening in Russia. I see also desperate actions of Russia with this Oreshnik strike on Ukraine, absolutely useless stuff. And I see the actually tasteless empire that is unable to win even in Ukraine. So the destiny of it is imminent. It's evident already that Russia has already lost the war. It has lost it from the start of this full-scale aggression already. Even if we imagine that Russian army could be successful, just imagine, no resistance from Ukraine initially, Russia occupied all of those territories. So what is next? How Russians could potentially control those territories? People would never accept Russians ruling. How they want to do it? Partisan war. It's like the second Afghanistan, maybe Iraq war for the United States, that they were not capable to really control resistance, yeah, some of the local resistance, and that's how ISIS was formed as the counter-reaction. Yes, it's terrible organization. I understand that it should be gone. Still, there are some of the cells of ISIS exist in the region, but it was formed as the vacuum of the government, vacuum of power, and Americans were not capable to fill this vacuum, unfortunately. American army is very capable in military, but what is happening next after they get rid of dictators, that's the issue. Usually, unfortunately, it goes to chaos, as it was in Afghanistan, partially Iraq, and also Libya. Yeah, joint forces of Europeans and Americans, successful operation, but what we have is the civil war. So the same story could have happened with Russians if they were successful with the special military operation, dismissing Zelensky. Still, there would have been the resistance of Ukrainian people. So Russia is doomed. Every other scenario, it shows that Russia is not successful in any case. any case is very bad for Russia. And Putin doesn't understand it. Putin hadn't understood it then he started this operation, and he doesn't understand it now. He's incompetent. He lives in his own bubble. He is smarter than Trump, it's understandable. Yeah, he's more competent than Donald Trump, but he doesn't realize in what problem he put his own country, and that there is no way out of it any longer, and the only way is kaput, flatline, defragmentation, collapse, you may call it names. In the next 10 years, I give it 10 years, for sure we're gonna see it, my friends, and updates from Russia are coming. Well guys, on this positive note, I want to again thank my supporters on Patreon. My friends, thank you so much. Without you, I wouldn't be able to film videos. Thank you again so much. If you want to support the channel, the link for my Patreon is in the video description below, or you may follow me on membership of YouTube channel or subscribe on my Spotify, because I also put my videos over there. If you don't have this opportunity to support me in that way, press like to this video and subscribe for the channel, because that is how you boost this video in YouTube and Spotify algorithms. And for that also thank you so much. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time. Ciao.